Well, hello everybody out there in Atlanta. This is Chris from HHN with another exciting episode of Topher's Log. We are back inside the HHN Legacy Studios, as it were. We haven't been inside the studios for a long time. It is now, it took me a long time to try to readjust everything again because I haven't done it in so long. At least with Ruby here, we haven't done it either. I hope everything looks okay. It was a little bit of a learning curve getting back into the studios with this sort of sit-down vlog stuff. But yes, we are here to sort of put a final bow on Halloween Horror Nights 30, as well as revealing those Halloween Horror Nights 30 predictions that I made, back in January of 2020, and there's been quite a few people who have wanted me to sort of reveal that stuff, and I will. I sort of toyed with even if I should open it or not, because because the event was so derailed by COVID and stuff like that. It was kind of like, is it even worth it? Plus, I had some other plans involved with those predictions, so and those sort of fell through because of COVID. So I wasn't too keen on perhaps doing that, but nevertheless, we will do it. We're gonna have some fun. But before we get to those predictions that I had made, I want to do a little final wrap up on Halloween Horror Nights 30. I did my final vlog in the park. I'm having fun. I really have fun doing the in-park vlogs and stuff like that. I will be doing more of that this year, of course. This past week, I've been on vacation, and I renewed my Disney annual pass, my sort of Florida resident one. I don't care about the weekends because I'm never there on the weekends. I'm always working, so don't really care unless I'm on vacation, like this week. So I only got like the Monday through Friday thing, which is fine. Plus, it's got the blackout dates and stuff like that. So I did, we went down to Hollywood Studios earlier in the week. We rode Rise of the Resistance. We waited 2 hours for Rise of the Resistance. So that was fun. Went to Epcot a couple days ago. So I'm going to sort of sprinkle in a little bit more of the Disney stuff inside, for the vlogs, throughout the course of the year. So we'll do that. But of course, we will be back. I'll be back at Universal Studios tomorrow. Today, the weather is not good, so I decided not to go today and to do, get this vlog filmed because it's got to be filmed. So there is that. But yeah, we'll do our normal stuff throughout the course of the year. Of course, as Halloween Horror Nights 31 info drops, we will do the vlogs as usual. Maybe not with the Ruby setup, if I don't have time. But of course, we've got Little Paolo, my actual vlogging camera that I use in the park. So, if the setup isn't like this, then it's because I didn't have any time. So it is what it is. But anyway, Halloween Horror Nights 30, it is over. We are coming up on a week since Halloween Horror Nights 30 has ended. I enjoyed my time at Halloween Horror Nights 30. I really tried to sort of have my cake and eat it too in regards to going to the parks during Halloween Horror Nights and with COVID and stuff like that. I think we were successful. We had a plan going in. We were only at the event for a certain amount of time when we were there, usually from Stay and Scream to about 10:30. And we got to do a lot. Now, you might have heard on the internet, some people were, sort of shouting at the hills or through the hills about like how busy it was and stuff like that. I didn't really find Halloween Horror Nights to be that busy. I really do think that it was a year where you could really navigate the crowds. It wasn't what we had seen in recent history, with houses that had 3-4 hour waits. We didn't see that this year. Most of the wait times usually averaged on busier nights, averaged anywhere between 60 and 75 minutes. Which is not bad. That's not bad. There were the off days where things went up to, 80, 85. I saw one day where I believe it was Hill House had a 2-hour wait. But that wasn't the norm. It was just kind of, there were 1 or 2 days there where things sort of ballooned. For the most part, the wait times and the crowds, in my view, were pretty manageable. On the 2 days that we did go a week, I usually averaged about 4 to 5 houses. Going into the event, I really thought that I was only going to do a couple of houses a day. Usually, in my mind, I sort of thought that I would be doing 2 or 3 houses on each day that we were there. And that really didn't happen because the crowds were kind of low, especially in Stay and Scream. Most of the crowds were kind of down. We were able to do a lot of houses out of the gate. So I really didn't find these crowds that were overwhelming for the most part. Like I said, there were 1 or 2 days there where things did get a little crazy. But overall, I thought the crowds were pretty manageable. So I don't know where, this sort of sky is falling. Oh my God, HHN is so busy, I'm never coming back again type thing, which I did a video on. I did a video on my first ever visit to Halloween Horror Nights, which was back in 2000. It was so damn crowded, we couldn't do anything. And I vowed never to return to Halloween Horror Nights because of how busy it was. And here we are, some 20, 21, 22 years later. So I really didn't find the crowds to be all that sort of crazy this year. I don't really know where that came from, but nevertheless, it is what it is. We got to do a lot. We did, I averaged about 4 or 5 houses on the 2 nights that I was there, so we were able to do all 10 houses every week. If we of course played our cards right, which we usually did. I don't keep track of house counts all that much. I keep a mental note. I don't know why people care about how many times you go through a house. Like, who cares? I went through the houses a lot. Every week I would go through them at least one time, but there were multiple nights there where I did a couple of houses, multiple times. Like Case Files, I did a lot multiple times. Bride of Frankenstein Lives, I did a lot multiple times. Even sometimes Wicked Growth, I did multiple times in the weeks that I went. So there were a lot of, multiple times through houses, every week that I went, which was not necessarily the plan, but that's kind of how it worked out. The house that I did the least was Tooth Fairy, and the house that I did the most, I believe, was Wicked Growth. Could be Case Files, but it was one of the two. But Tooth Fairy was my least favorite house last year when they opened for the Halloween festivities. It was my least favorite house this year at the event. Speaking of, I did do my my sort of rankings, my final rankings. I didn't keep the weekly running commentary on the houses. I did one at the beginning, I did one in the middle, and I did one at the end. So I didn't do sort of my traditional weekly count or ranking updates. I did my final ones. You can see that on the blog, but I will recap my rankings. Let's do that right now. Why not? So coming in at number 10 was Tooth Fairy. That was my least favorite house. It was my least favorite house last year when they opened during the Halloween festivities. I just found the house kind of repetitive. I didn't think it was all that scary. I think the facade I think was sort of the best part of the house, and then things got worse, progressively worse as the house went on. But it is what it is. Number 9 is Beetlejuice. I liked Beetlejuice. I thought the house really kind of did what Horror Nights does best, which is put you through the movie. It was sort of, of course, the fun house, the comedy house. It was brightly lit, the colors, all that stuff. I just didn't find it overall. It was fine. It was fine for what it was. I know there are a lot of Beetlejuice fans out there, so it is what it is. I just thought it was okay. Like I said, it's fun walking through the film. Because of some of the COVID stuff, things sort of changed and ebbed and flowed more throughout the course of the event than I think they usually did or do. Because things always change. But I think it was there was a lot of stuff that was more noticeable this year later on in the events, which doesn't usually happen. Like, for instance, in Tooth Fairy, I think they added some victims in the house. That was much later on in the run, which they tried to, I guess, to up the factor of the house. Beetlejuice was the opposite, where a lot of things kind of disappeared, or at least some things disappeared. Like, we had some actors disappear. The sort of alien ghost skeleton priest thingy at the very beginning of the run, that was a real person. And then about like 2 or 3 weeks in, they sort of got rid of the person and just put the thing on a still pedestal, which was weird. And then some other places around the house blanked, which was weird. I don't know. It is what it is. But the Beetlejuice was kind of noticeable because of that, especially with that one character. That one character was very noticeably absent. I remember seeing it at the beginning of the events, but it just kind of vanished towards the end of the events, or at least halfway through. So that was interesting. But Beetlejuice was okay. It is what it is. It was, it was fine. Beetlejuice was fine. Number 8 is going to be Welcome to Scary, Horror in the Heartland. I said this in the blog. I think this was a house that I was expecting a little bit more to happen in. I thought the transitions between sort of the different settings was a little abrupt. It wasn't natural. It wasn't a natural flow in between everything. It was just kind of like, oh, you're walking through the sewers, and all of a sudden you're in the nest of vampires from the hive, and it just didn't kind of flow that well. All in all, it was a good house. It was a solid house. Cindy, of course, was a highlight. I made a mention in the blog about, the main icons got, their own house, of course, and HHN icons captured. But all the would-be icons, Eddie, Terra Queen, and Cindy were all represented outside of HHN icons captured. Eddie, of course, was in Lights, Camera, Action. The Terra Queen was in Gorewood Forest, and Cindy was inside Welcome to Scary. So, I thought that was actually pretty interesting that they sort of did that. But Scary was fine. Like I said, I thought the transitions were a little abrupt, and I think I wanted a little bit more to happen in this house because of the history and stuff like that. I think personally I wanted a little bit more, but all in all, it was a good house. It was a solid house. I did overhear one time in line somebody complaining about how they didn't get sort of the urban nightmare right inside the house. Which I found funny because it's not about, I think a lot of people, especially those, normal people, didn't really know that, the stuff that was represented inside Scary were past houses. They were past houses, past scare zones of stuff that was set in Scary. So I think that, I think overall, I think that the translation of the house was kind of lost, lost in translation to some people. But I enjoyed it. It was fine. It is what it is. So Scary comes in at number 8. Number 7 was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like I said in the blog, don't let the low ranking on the list fool you. I really liked the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I know a lot of people didn't. But I thought, overall, I think Texas had the best sort of overall scare factor in the house. I thought that was a lot, especially if you're afraid of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I went to the event with a couple of newbies who had never been before, and they pegged Texas Chainsaw as the scariest house at the event. They thought overall Wicked Growth was the scariest, was the best house, but I think they had a lot more scares going on inside Texas. I like the 2016 house, and I thought the one here was really good as well. I love the compromise of putting in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 in there. I thought was very interesting. But overall, yeah, I really like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't really get the hate for this house, but it was well designed. I really like the pig part. I thought that was very cool. So yeah, overall, love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Comes in at number 7. Number 6 is going to be Hill House. I loved Hill House. I thought the first couple of run-throughs that we went through the house, it didn't gel for me. But over the course of the event, I thought it just worked a lot better. Of course, the set design was really great in here. Had a lot of really good scares. Very dark, very dark when I got to that tunnel, of course, which I was always nervous about because I went to Horror Nights a lot alone. I know advertising never go alone, but I went twice with other people. But over the course of my run, I was there all by myself, and whenever I would walk through that tunnel, I couldn't see anything. I was so nervous about hitting somebody. So it is what it is. Especially if you go through these houses when it's still light outside, you can't. It's hard to see as it is, and you go through that completely darkened tunnel, and it's just even worse. It's just even worse. But Hill House coming in at number 6. Number 5 is going to be The Bride of Frankenstein Lives. It's my favorite house last year that they did at the sort of Halloween festivities, and it was my 5th favorite house this year. I love this house. I love the story in this house. I love the design. I've said it multiple times. I love when Universal uses the Universal Classic Monsters at Halloween Horror Nights, and this is no exception. I love the twist in the story. I love this house so much, and I'm gonna miss it. Because we got to do it a lot last year, and then we got to do it a lot this year. So, but I love this house. If the other 4 houses weren't so strong, this would be my without a doubt my number 1 house for the year. And because I don't think it had the draw as some of the other IPs did, of course. Bride of Frankenstein Lives usually didn't get a whole lot of line. So there was a lot of opportunity to do the house multiple times, especially right at Stain Scream. There was usually nobody in line. There were a couple times there where I just ran through it like 3 or 4 times, pretty much by myself. So I love this house. I really hope they bring back the Universal Classic Monsters next year. We will see. But yeah, I love this run that we've gone on of all the Universal Classic Monsters. So coming in at number 4 is going to be Puppet Theater Captive Audience. Again, really like this house. I know a lot of people peg this as, much higher. It was a great house. I love the house. I thought sometimes Puppet Theater could be a little inconsistent, which is why it was a little bit lower on the list. But overall, Puppet Theater is a great house. Of course, it was the first house that we had announced for Halloween Horror Nights 30 way back in the fall of 2020 when I don't think they were supposed to do it, but when they made that little video that they put on Peacock early about the house coming back, of course, because it was with the exception of one house for Halloween Horror Nights 30, all the houses were supposed to come for 2020's event, and then when it got canceled, they just sort of left everything up. And then they, just used everything again. So Puppet Theater, of course, was one of those. I love the setting here, nice and creepy puppets. The marionette room, I thought was great. The little gnome, I'm going to be hearing that little gnome for a long time in my head. Sometimes, I'll probably be sitting here and that little hum that he did. Love Puppet Theater, Captive Audience. Number 3, Case Files Unearthed, Legendary Truth. This is another one that was very inside baseball. And I know that, for people who aren't well versed in the lore of Halloween Horror Nights, they might not have gotten what was going on underneath the surface. But above the surface, I think that you could still enjoy the house. Those normies that I went to the event with for the first time, they really liked Case Files Unearthed. It was one of the first houses that we did that night, and they were really into it. So, and then I had to explain to them, of course, later on what everything was. And, and then that just sort of piqued their interest a little bit more. So, but it's a house that if you know what's going on, underneath the surface, then you'll obviously enjoy it more. But I thought it was designed well. Of course, the using the sort of facades that were in the park and bringing them into the house, I thought was really unique. And we really hadn't seen anything. Hi. Future Editing Chris here. We had a little snafu going on in the vlog. My microphone, for whatever reason, decided that it wanted to drop out during this conversation. And it comes back a little bit later. I have no idea why it did that. But so we're talking about Case Files. Case Files was coming in at number 3. So we'll skip ahead to HHN Icons Captured, coming in at number 2. I loved HHN Icons Captured. This one, I guess in recent days, has gotten a little bit of backlash. Because people thought it was overrated and stuff like that, which I can see. I can see why some people would think that it was overrated. I don't know if it was the nostalgia trip that was hitting me at the time, maybe because of the last 2 years that we've had, but I really enjoyed HHN Icons Captured. I love how they incorporated all the different icons and stuff like that. Wasn't the overall scariest be-all, end-all of houses, but I really enjoyed HHN Icons Captured. Number 1, of course, is Wicked Growth. Wicked Growth, I wouldn't necessarily peg Wicked Growth as like a goat yet. I think it needs to breathe a little bit more, but it definitely was hands down the best house at the event. I love how it sort of starts out and sort of like this little Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe in a way, with the little thing on the radio talking about the bodies and the blood sprawled across the walls and stuff like that. So yeah. Gonna keep this a little bit short. Wicked Growth comes in at number 1. We pick up the conversation with a talk about the scare zones and 30 years, 30 fears. The scare zones, I think, took a little bit of a hit this year, particularly more likely because of COVID and because of other things. The scare zones weren't the end all be all this year, but I still found most of the scare zones very fun to sort of just walk around in and take pictures and sort of imbibe all the atmosphere that was going on around you. I think it did a good job in terms of that stuff. But, I think, it is what it is. I know there's been a lot of people that have poo-pooed the scare zones this year. I don't particularly hate on scare zones as a whole this year. I think for the most part, they did their job. with the exception of one, which coming in at number 5 is 30 Years, 30 Fears. I think a lot of people were expecting something else in this scare zone. The whole idea, I guess, was supposed to be that you're entering a portal, through to Halloween Horror Nights 30, and it was supposed to represent all the past of Halloween Horror Nights. Don't necessarily think that worked. I thought it did a good job of giving off like old school Horror Nights vibes with the, obviously the lighted marquee and the fire and stuff like that. But for the most part, I don't think it worked overall. The actors in there were always great, so there's no qualms there. But don't think it worked overall. So coming in number 4 is going to be Crypt TV. Especially in recent years, the scare zones in San Francisco tend to suffer because of the sort of tight quarters that are in there. And there were a lot of times this year too, walking through Crypt TV, that you just you couldn't walk. It was so packed, you could not walk through Crypt TV. So, but I love the idea of this. Obviously, there's been a lot of calls to bring this as a house next year. Who knows? Especially with the Girl in the Woods, which I think threw everybody for a loop. Actually becoming a show on Peacock, which is of course one of the Crypt TV shorts that happened throughout the course of the event. So it is what it is. Loved the sort of the costumes and stuff like that. I think all that worked, but it suffered a lot because of the bottleneck that happens in San Francisco most of the time. So Crypt TV coming in number 4. Number 3 is Gorewood Forest. Sort of suffers from the same problem that the San Francisco zones suffer from all the time. It usually becomes a bottleneck. But I love the atmosphere here. Central Park always lends itself to some great sort of dark atmospheric, scare zones, and I think that this was no exception. Of course, there was a little twist on the sort of Terror Queen story and the whole Terror Quintus thing. It's just being set inside Gorewood Forest. They sort of redesigned things a little bit because obviously she missed her year in 2020, so it was kind of a year late, but still being part of the cycle type thing. I thought all that stuff worked very well. So just a great atmospheric zone with some good throwbacks to, of course, Halloween Horror Nights 2005 and Terror Quintus, but really suffers from that bottleneck of people. Always suffers from that bottleneck of people. Coming in number 2. Lights, Camera, Haction. The scare zone of the year, Lights, Camera, Haction. I loved Lights, Camera, Haction. Do not get me wrong. I had much more fun in another scare zone. People probably hate me forever for that, but I don't give a shit. Of course, another example of, going back to the past with all the scare zone sets that were going on in there, and some other characters that were running around in there, whether it was the Treeks and Foons, the sort of HHN cheerleader chainsaw people running around, the alien from Invasion, of course, and then Eddie coming in the middle. Very loud, very chaotic. I really like the touch of having the Hollywood soundtrack that is usually played during the day being played during the scare zone, and then kind of undercutting it with sort of the screams and the sound effects and stuff like that. I thought that was a good touch. A great zone to just walk around, take pictures, take in. Like I said, I like the zone, love the zone actually. Both 2 and 1 got the same rating from me, so I love both of them. I just had a little bit more fun in my number 1 favorite scare zone of the year, Seek and Destroy. I just embraced the weirdness that was happening in the scare zone. And over the course of the event, they did improve on things. They added victims and, little things like, especially towards the end of the run, they were putting the victims in that little stage that was at the far end of the New York section of the park. They were putting them in there and sort of like keeping them trapped in there and stuff like that. Like there was a lot of stuff in here that I'm like, this is so fucking weird, but I love it. I love how weird it was. I love the interactive character that was on the stage, the actual controller. I love that as well. But I really, really like how weird this thing was. I couldn't tell you exactly what was going on inside the scare zone. But I just loved how weird it was. And I love the actors in here. The actors really brought this scare zone up for me. They were trying so hard to make this thing work. And I thought they did. I thought they just overall made the scare zone work. They're very interactive. They were very fun to watch, very fun to sort of watch, how they were scaring people. I just love the weirdness of the zone, guys. It was so weird and crazy and loud. Why do alien characters coming down to sort of steal blood from human beings have chainsaws? I don't know, but it just worked so well for me. Of course, if I remember correctly, the whole chainsaw thing was added later. I think it was added like the second week of the event. Because when they first started, I don't think they had chainsaws, but I don't know why they have them, but it works. So it worked for me anyway. I just had a whole lot of fun in Seek and Destroy, and it was the zone I spent the most time in. And also, I spent a lot of time in Haction too, but I usually ended my night with Haction, but I always lingered inside Seek and Destroy just to watch and experience. I love the spotlights, I love the colors, I love all that stuff. Like I had a lot of fun in Seek and Destroy. I know a lot of people hate me for that, but I had a lot of fun. Of course, we had the mix-up on the final night. Some people were saying that Seek and Destroy had won Scare Zone of the Year, and I was very excited. I was like, oh my god, yes, embrace the weirdness. But of course, Lights, Camera, Action actually won Scare Zone of the Year. And like I said, the whole Scare Zone of the Year thing is kind of just like an internal thing. It's not voted on by fans or anything like that. It's something that they decide on internally, and then it's sort of put out there to the masses on the final night. We had a mix-up recently, of course, in 2018. There was a mix-up between the Chucky Zone and Killer Clowns. There was almost the same thing where one zone was announced as the winner on the final night, but it wasn't that zone. It was another zone. So there was, it's not the first time we've had a mix-up like that. But Seek and Destroy will be my favorite scare zone for the year for a long time to come. It was just weird. It was so weird. So bizarre. I have no idea what was going on in that scare zone. But it just worked for me. It just overall worked for me just because it was so fucking weird. And I don't even think they knew what was going on. And they just sort of embraced that as well. All that stuff just because they were embracing it and because it was just weird, it just worked. It worked for me overall. I loved Seek and Destroy. So there you have it. Those are the final rankings for Halloween Horror Nights 30. Not a whole lot else that I wanted to talk about in terms of closing out the event. I am very surprised in a way that they were able to pull off the event in the times that we live in. Of course, with the Plexi's been a very controversial issue inside the house. I don't think the Plexi really took anything away, from the house. I mean, yes, there are instances where you can see it and it does give away the scares. But I didn't mind it. So, as long as I was able to have the event, I didn't care. A couple things on the shows. I got to see Halloween Nightmare Fuel towards the end of the run. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good show. It will be, of course, the final show in the Fear Factor live stage. Case Files on Earth will be the last house in the Shrek 4D theater because Shrek is closing in January, as is the Fear Factor live stage. So, it was fine. I thought it was an interesting mix of a little bit of AOV. I know that's a name that we're not supposed to say anymore, but it did kind of feel a little bit like, if they took some elements from AOV, added a little bit of magic and some fire, and it was fine. It was a fun show. The Marathon of Mayhem Carnage Factory, I thought it was still fine, but it wasn't as enjoyable. I think there was a little bit of energy missing from this particular show compared to the first one. Still a fun show. It is what it is. I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot of Marathon of Mayhems in the future. So, because that show it's just so popular. And who knows, now that the Grinch show for the holiday festivities is going to go into the old Blue Man Group Theater, wouldn't surprise me if whatever show we have for Halloween Horror Nights in the future goes into that theater as well, I discussed that in a video earlier in the season. You can go check that out. Maybe I'll link it down below. But I did discuss places for a show, a possible show if Fear Factor Live was to go away and stuff like that. So I did talk about that. But yeah, so what did you guys do? Did you guys have fun on Halloween Horror Nights 30? Were you not able to go because of restrictions and COVID and stuff like that, which is cool as well. But if you did go, did you enjoy Halloween Horror Nights 30? I had a good time. I think it was a strong year. I don't think it was the end-all, be-all of years, but I think because of the circumstances that we are in for this year, or were in the last couple years, I thought that Halloween Horror Nights 30 did a good job. That's just me. I had a good time. So, now we come to the part of the video that I'm sure all of you guys are waiting for. I am going to open my predictions for Halloween Horror Nights 30 that I made way back. A couple of things I want to make mention of about the predictions. I also had a whole storyline in mind throughout the course that I was going to do throughout the course of speculation season and those predictions. That's why in the video where I actually, put the envelope on the shelf at the very end there was that image of the hand taking up the envelope and sort of ruffling it around and putting the predictions in there. The whole idea was that there was going to be this entity in my studio here, which was going to, or had tampered with the predictions. And at the end of the run, when I did open the predictions, there was going to be messages and stuff. It was going to be a whole thing. And COVID derailed all that stuff pretty quickly. So that's another reason why I wasn't sure if I wanted to open it, because, sort of my intent behind it was sort of screwed up because of COVID. But anyway, without further ado, let us open our predictions for Halloween Horror Nights 30. I have my little trusty knife here, so we're going to go ahead and open it. Like I said, this has been sitting on my shelf for a long time. All right. So, right off the bat, Bill and Ted return, AOV does not. So I struck out swinging there. Bill and Ted did not return, AOV did not return. We got Halloween Nightmare Fuel instead. The Terror Queen comes in house form. Terror Queen did not come in house form. Terror Queen came in Scare Zone form. So I'm going to peg myself for that one. I'm going to give myself a point for that one. An icon house. HHN icons captured. We had all the icons in a house. So I will give myself points for that one. Creepshow comes as a house. And in parentheses, I have the TV show. Obviously, that did not come to fruition. Lagoon Show returning with a new theme. That did, of course, happen. So I'm going to give myself another point for that. No icon. I'm still going to give myself a point for this because Jack, of course, was the overall icon, but I didn't really consider him an icon. But if you guys want to dock me a point for that, you can, because Jack, I guess, technically was an icon, but I digress. Legendary Truth House. Obviously, Legendary Truth, Case Files on Earth. Legendary Truth was a house. Stranger Things comes in some form. Obviously, no to that one. Chucky appears, maybe as a house. Chucky did not appear as a house or in Scare Zone form, but Chucky did appear, sort of, as in the photo op zone there on the bridge. No 80s theme. Of course, we did not have an 80s theme, so I'm going to give myself another point for that one. A prequel-requel to a popular house. We did not really get that. We got Wicked Growth. I have in parentheses Scarecrow the Reaping. Wicked Growth, I mentioned before, did have sort of a Scarecrow the Reaping vibe in some way, shape, or form, but I'm not going to give myself points for that one. Candyman or Jordan Peele collaboration obviously did not happen. And I have a couple of what I call shots in the dark. So Shot in the Dark number 1, The Invisible Man, obviously did not happen. Shot in the Dark, The Walking Dead Returns, obviously did not happen. Fear will make an appearance somehow. Fear made an appearance in HHN Icons captured. An upcharged VIP experience. That did not happen. The Conjuring finally shows up. Did not happen. A mashup of IP properties as a house. Did not happen. Another Netflix property. Sabrina or Hill House. Haha! Hill House. did happen. So giving myself a point for that one. Another shot in the dark. Gremlins. Obviously did not happen. Shot in the dark. Beetlejuice. Giving myself a point for that one. And those, my friends, are the predictions that I made way back in January of 2020. I think I did a pretty good job with these predictions. There were a couple in there that obviously I got it really wrong. Bill and Ted, of course. But I think I did a pretty good job. if I don't say so myself. I think I did pretty good in pegging on what would come. I should have put down here, I think there was another piece of paper somewhere, but I put down, I think in an earlier, when I sat down to actually do the predictions, I did predict a mashup of some form. I put in the IP thing here. Obviously, the mashup we did get was in Scary Ohio. So it is what it is. But there you go. So those are my predictions. I thought I put down here about the Universal Classic Monsters 2 returning. Obviously, not the case. I'm just going to look over really quickly and make sure that I didn't miss anything. So there you go. Those are my predictions. So all you guys that were waiting for my predictions, I hope I did well. I probably will not do predictions for Halloween Horror Nights 31 because this was kind of this was an interesting experiment. I think that most people can sit down and sort of predict what could or could not be coming to Halloween Horror Nights on any given year, especially when it comes to IPs. I think IPs are kind of easy to predict, especially these days with Halloween Horror Nights. Whatever's popular, especially when it comes to Netflix, you could probably predict what could be coming. So hey, you know what? I'll make a prediction right now. I'm gonna say that Fear Street will come to Halloween Horror Nights 31 in some way, shape, or form. I think we will get a house for Fear Street, possibly even Stranger Things. I think one of those two things is very possible for Halloween Horror Nights 31, especially because we had Stranger Things having an off year. Well, everything had an off year, but with season 4 coming out, I think that could be a very good possibility. I do not think that Horror Nights is going to do Bly Manor. I think the Hill House stuff is over. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think I'm going to make that a prediction. I'm going to predict that Fear Street will be part of Halloween Horror Nights 31. So there you go. So those are my predictions. And that, I think, is going to wrap up Halloween Horror Nights 30. We've put it in a bow. I've given you guys my house rankings. I don't think that there is anything else that I wanted to say. So Halloween Horror Nights 30 in the books. We look forward to Halloween Horror Nights 31. This will close out my Topher's Log for HHN 30 playlist. We move on to Halloween Horror Nights 31. I think if I was a betting man, we'd probably get something. I'm gonna say in December we're gonna get something in regards to dates for Halloween Horror Nights 31. It would not surprise me. They've done it in the past. It is what it is. So I'm gonna say that'd be maybe another prediction. Halloween Horror Nights 31 dates in December. So I hope everybody had fun. I hope I put out some good content this year. My predictions. I think I did well. That's just me. I think I did well on my predictions. I didn't go all out. I didn't peg every little thing. But I think for the most part, I think my predictions were pretty spot on. I still want to see Gremlins at the event. Please do Gremlins. Of course, we did it for our fantasy event last year. We put Gremlins in the event. So, Gremlins, and I would love to see Night of the Living Dead. I would love to see those two things come to the event still. So, anyway, that is going to do it for me. As usual, everybody, thanks for watching. And I will talk to you guys next time. Ha ha!